Welcome back to the Cycle Starters podcast. I'm your host, Heather Rebecca Wilson, and today I am so thrilled to welcome Kelly McCall, a certified death doula whose work brings dignity, compassion, and healing to one of life's most profound transitions. Kelly's extensive experience as an INELDA certified death doula, trained by Maui's Doorway into Light, combines with her background in hospice care, elder care, and dementia support. As both a dedicated hospice volunteer and certified massage therapist, she brings a holistic approach to end-of-life care that addresses not just physical needs, but emotional and spiritual ones as well. What makes Kelly's work so special is her ability to serve as a bridge, connecting families with the resources they need, facilitating difficult conversations, and providing unwavering support during challenging times. Her warmth and deep understanding of this sacred transition help create spaces where healing can occur, even in life's most difficult moments. I'm excited to dive deep with Kelly today about her journey, her ancestral connections, and the important cycles that she's starting in her work. Welcome, Kelly. How are you?
I'm good, Heather. It's so good to be here. Thank you for asking me. It's so good to be with you.
I'm so happy you're here. I've really been looking forward to this conversation because this is a topic that I know a little bit about. And so I'm really just fascinated with what you do and excited to learn more. So yeah, thanks for being here.
Sure.
Well, so let's start with your ancestry. So what do you feel comfortable sharing about your ancestral background?
Well, quite literally, I can share what I know to be true, which is that I have pretty intense Celtic origins, Irish, Scottish, English, Welsh. I know it from what my family's told me, but I really knew it more when I went the first time to the United Kingdom, specifically to Wales, and had such an intense physical reaction there that I didn't know how to explain. And I was in my early 20s. And I'm 58 now. So it was a really long time ago. No cell phones, no internet, really. It was just the feeling and I couldn't shake it. And I just knew it was like that old crazy show on television that I think was based on a movie, The Highlander, when they'd have the quickening. That's how I explained it to friends when I came home.
That's awesome. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. That's super powerful to, have like a physical, energetic reaction to, a motherland, right? The land of our ancestors. That's really, really cool.
I think it's important.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's very important. So I want to dive into being a death doula. Can you explain to people what that is? And then also talk about how you got into doing this really, really important work?
Yeah. So I'll try to kind of keep it on as much of a path as possible because it's a lot of information over a lifetime. So condensing it is a little bit tricky, but I'll do my best. So death doula or death midwife has been around since the dawn of time in some fashion. There have been people sitting by the bedsides of people that are dying, just like there have been midwives at birth. So it's not a new thing. It's a new thing culturally in that we've named it this thing that's taught on death doula. Doula is actually a Greek word that I don't like to use because the inference is female slave. So, but when you say death midwife, there are a lot of midwives, birthing midwives that don't like that being co-opted for death. So I think it's just figuring it out personally, what works. And because it's taken on such a thing lately, I've stayed with it for now. But I think it's really important to understand language and words and where things come from. It was co-opted for death work. And I believe this for birth work, that doula was co-opted in the 70s. And then it started being used in the early 2000s around death. So it was a female servant or indentured servant or slave that was responsible for the private needs of the woman of the household. So that's where it originally came from. So, but there have been people doing this work forever. It's not new. I think what's new about it, some specificity around it. So the training that I've received has been in multiple places, as you mentioned in my bio, but it's learning about how to really hold the space for somebody, which to me is active listening, not making it about yourself, making it about the person that's having this experience. Also, their family, just really sitting in presence. I always say a prayer before I pass through the door. Try to stay as quiet and calm as possible, and be as direct as possible. I don't dance around language. I use the word die, dying, death. I don't say passed on or anything like that, because I think we're very death phobic. And so we've moved away from those words. And I think that those words have a lot of meaning that's important. We talk about in school and training, and the trainings I've been a part of, we talk about sitting vigil with the person who's actively dying and what that might look like, what might feel good to them and the family. We talk about rituals. Different cultures, different races, different people have all kinds of rituals that they've heard of, that they might have in their family, that they may have because of the religion that they feel connected to. Any number of things. So that's all part of getting to know a client or their family. So for instance, with you, I would just ask you questions like, if you have control over where you're going to die, what would that look like to you? And you might say to me, and you could even answer that now, like, in my home. Okay. Where in your home? Exactly where in your home? Who do you want there? Who do you not want there? Really important. Do you want your animals there? What do you want to be wearing? Do you want music on? Do you want, singing? Do you want any number of things? So it's really what feels good to you. I had a young woman who was dying, who was in her teens, and she was really committed to being cremated. So I talked to her about that, what actually happens, because she wanted to know all the things. I was like, well, this is what happens. And then I asked her if she had a preference to how that occurred. And she said, what do you mean? And I said, well, it's normally a cardboard box, but it can also be a wooden box. She's like, oh, I really want a wooden box. Okay. And I said, do you want me to get that box ahead of time? And she said, can I have that? And so she and her friends got together and decorated the box.
Wow.
So, it's really just bringing humanity to the end of the life. The things that we think about in birth, we don't think about in death. And so, with schooling, back to that, active listening, really being with people, really hearing what they want, making sure they understand what's happening. I've heard so many stories from teachers and have myself experienced people that haven't been clearly told that they're dying.
Mm.
Like the doctor hasn't said you are dying. So how does that even happen? So everyone's sort of dancing around the biggest elephant we could ever think of in a room. So there's holding the space. There are vigils. There are rituals. There is the paperwork behemoth nightmare, right? Do you have your affairs in order? So I remember asking one of my best friends who's a social worker recently, and she doesn't. And, it's part of death phobia, I think, or we think it's not going to happen to us when, of course, it's one of the only certainties we literally have. So what does that mean? That means a will. That means an advanced healthcare directive. That means all of those things. What about your stuff? What about your pets? What about your car? What about every single thing you can think of? What's the plan? And that is a huge undertaking, and people get overwhelmed by it. And so they don't do it or they put it off. But what I can tell you is it is really rough going on a family when those things are not in place. And because everyone's, they're like, what does grandma want us to do with this remote? And so, it's just it's just jarring. And there are really good things out there now. There's like Trust in Will. There are things you can download off the internet. You can download in almost every state right off the internet a one-page will that for the most part, two witnesses being there will suffice. And you can handwrite it. There are all kinds of things you can do. And I encourage everyone to do it so that it's clear for your loved ones. Because as one of my teachers likes to say, there's no guarantee any of us are waking up tomorrow. There just isn't. And so what are you waiting for with the bucket list? What are you waiting for with not getting these things in place? All of that. And we're terrible at it as human beings. And in North America, for the most part, we're really terrible at it. So those are some of the things. There's also legacy work. Be like, Heather, what's your life story? Let's jot that down. Let's write it down. Let's record it. Let's think of ways to really capture your essence. Because when people are laying on their deathbed, the thing that they are most concerned about is pain. And second is that they'll be forgotten. So how do we preserve you? How do we preserve your essence? That thing about everyone dies twice. You die once when your body physically dies, and you die the second time when your name is uttered for the last time. So how do we keep that going? How do we keep your name alive? How do we really, really keep it going? All of the people that have passed before us, which goes straight into ancestral healing, which is another thing. But I think that this work is really something that sort of calls to you. I think a lot of people romanticize it. I've had some young ladies come up to me and, oh my God, I really want to be a death doula. And I'm like, that is fantastic. Please go volunteer at hospice and attend 3, 4, 5 deaths, really, until you decide that it's something that you want to commit your life to, or a portion of your life.
Wow. My goodness. Well, this is beautiful, this support that you provide folks who are dying and what you provide to their families. So thank you so much for saying yes to walking this path. It's just truly astonishing to me.
It chose me. Yeah, it definitely chose me. So,
well, tell me more about that. How did you get into this sacred work?
So I have been around a lot of death and dying since I was little. My best friend died when I was 7 in front of me. She was hit by a car. And yeah, it was really tragic. And I was not allowed to see the body. So, which, my parents at the time did what they thought the right thing was. But I was at the cemetery waiting for everyone to come out from viewing the body and from the service. And I just remember walking around and looking at the headstones, and I was fascinated by what's here. What is this? What do you mean the people are here? I didn't quite understand. I knew that Debbie wasn't coming back. Right. I think that not being allowed to see the dead body was what fascinated me. Then I really wanted to know more,
right.
How we are as humans and women and all of that. So, and then I had animals that died, all of those things. And then friends of the family, and then older people in my community. And then when I got into massage therapy, we had a cadaver class that was offered that I will tell you was unbelievably helpful for understanding the physicality of the body, how to really support people, where the muscle attaches, what that means, how to release it. But it just kind of kept that interest going for me of, we are just these fascinating creatures. We really are. And we're filled with electricity, and we're made of the same thing as stars. And what is going on? What is all of this? And so I found myself sitting at the bedside of quite a few people that were dying. And how that showed up was a boyfriend's father was dying. And I was the one that walked into the room where his family was sitting around him. Several of the adult children were nurses, but nobody was touching him. Nobody was near him. And I looked at everyone. I was like, you guys, you can touch Doc. It's okay. He's not broken. He's dying. It's okay. You can touch him. And And he probably would really like your touch right now. And I was like, hey, and I went over to his bed and I was like, hey, is it okay if we kind of snuggle up with you? And he was like, yeah. And so it's that just instinct, intuition, whatever of, hey, we're here. I'm still here. I'm not broken. I'm dying. You're also going to die. And they're going to die, and that's going to die. And if your religion is animism, which mine sort of is, everything will, right? So, but I think that thing with Doc was really a game changer for me. And I had friends talk to me and say, that's a job. And I didn't understand. I was like, yeah, it can be a lot of work. I mean, it's like emotionally. They're like, no, it's like a job. And so I looked into it a little bit more. And so currently there's no necessary certification nationally or by state. You can receive certifications, which I think are really important. So that's why I went after them in multiple places and have trained with a barrage of people, because I think just like anything that we want to try to master, the more information and the more takes on it from different people, different cultures, different races that you can get, the better. Because, there are things that we need to know if we're going to do this work. For a Jewish family, the body has to be in the ground within 3 days. There are Persian families that have certain criteria around their work. Like when I went to work at a Persian hospice, I wasn't allowed to say death, dying, dead. I couldn't tell people I was from hospice. And I ultimately left there because that's just not how I can't show up that way.
Right.
And it's fine with me, but I was just, I wasn't able to say what was actually happening. I wouldn't have been a good choice. We are sorely lacking in people in this work in the Black and Brown community. I don't know exactly why that is. I have some thoughts about it. I have a dear friend named Mary Alice who works in the elder care community, which is another natural part of this, because so many clients that I come across are older and they have a spouse, or they themselves are also suffering from cognitive impairment or dementia or something like that. They need a higher level of care than they're getting, than their family can provide. So it's a natural fit to bring in hospice. It's also a natural fit to bring in assisted living, independent living, skilled nursing, all of that. So that's why I have also been really reaching out into those areas as well, learning about dementia care, learning because so many people are affected by it, studying with Teepa Snow, who's amazing. It's Teepa Snow. The way she humanizes dementia, the way she helps you understand how to care for people with dementia is a game changer. And then almost always I've had so many people who've called me about a grandfather or a husband or somebody. And I've said, well, have you reached out to hospice? And they have this idea that hospice is really for the very end, meaning weeks, days. And it's not. It's for a year, sometimes more. You can bring them in. My father's under hospice care right now in my own home. He's totally ambulatory. He's great. He can move around, but he has terminal issues. So I brought hospice in immediately because I want a nurse here once a week. I want a social worker I can lean into. When he starts to get symptoms, which he will at some point, like all of us, I want to know I can pick up the phone and call somebody, and it's covered by Medicare. So it's no out of pocket for us. But those are all things, Heather, that most people are like, I didn't know that.
Right.
And why don't we know that? So that's why on my website, on the back page, I have hospice referral. I have elder care referral. I have funeral home referral. There's some incredible people here, mostly women, like Sherry Wolf, who has multiple funeral homes. And she was a trailblazer over 20 years ago. She started the Green Burial Council here in California. She is at the forefront of all of this work of helping people understand. She's so loving about it. These are your options in California. These are all the things we can do. This is how we do it. Anyway, there's just a myriad of all of that all over the place. And I wish it was more of a conversation. I think people are talking about death more. I wish they were talking about it in a slightly different way, but, we'll get there.
Yes. And you're part of this evolution in consciousness around death and dying. Oh my goodness. You are just a wealth of wisdom and information. And I'm going to make sure that we put the link to your website in the show notes so that people can
Thank you.
check it out and just learn more about you, the work you do, and all of the resources that are on that website as well. So that's
And they are all for free. Like my feeling is I've always been taken care of. I will always be taken care of. There's enough work for everybody. And I give people free advice. The people that are listed on my website give people some free counseling, and I charge ability to pay. And that's all on a sliding scale on my website. I feel like that's just how it is,
That's awesome. I love it that you're making this accessible to everyone, right? Just wherever they're at with their finances.
I want to just circle back to one thing because I left it out, and it's really the pillar of my work, which is that my sort of mentor, if you will, is Stephen Jenkinson. And for those that don't know about him, he wrote a book a little over 10 years ago called Die Wise. And I read that book and it changed my life. It really helped me pivot into this as work. There's also I think it's on Amazon, I'm not sure, a documentary about him called Grief Walker. Please have a box of Kleenex when you view the movie. And I've had the privilege of sitting with him a lot recently. He's received a terminal diagnosis recently as well. But, his focus, unsurprisingly, also is a lot towards ancestry. Who are your people? Where do you come from? The reason that so many people in Anglo-North America feel displaced or like they don't belong here is because they don't belong here. And starting there, it's sort of like New England. We were leaving a place, we hated it so much, and we couldn't help ourselves. We called it all the same thing, and we continued the same behavior like we didn't really learn. It's just interesting for me.
Yeah. No, super interesting. I mean, we could do a whole other episode on all of that. Yeah, and I just want to acknowledge the work that you're doing with your father right now.
Yeah.
It's really, really beautiful that you can be with him and just spend time with him and hold the space for his transition.
It's different day by day, sometimes hour by hour. And he's different and, sitting in the unknown. I could have missed this entirely because I had a thought of what it would all look like. And I'm glad I've learned to just let things show up how they really are.
Oh my goodness. Well, I'm sending you so much love, your whole family, so much love.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Well, so you mentioned ancestral healing, and this podcast is all about ancestral healing and starting new cycles. So I'm curious, when did the concept of ancestral healing or intergenerational healing even enter your orbit? When did you realize, oh, this is a thing, right? Things are passed down.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can look at literal things like what we look like. Like my eyes are a certain color because my parents' eyes are a certain color, or things like that, or isms, alcoholism, addiction, any of those things, which are run rampant in my family because, we're Celtic. So I think, Jameson's whiskey was pretty much mother's milk for me. And I've been sober a really long time. So there's that. But I think it started when I was in Wales, when I had my backpack on and I was 21 and I was hiking over the mountains in Abergavenny, and I stood on that hill and it was freezing cold, but I wasn't cold. And there was your namesake, heather and broom, blowing around in the wind. And I looked out at the freezing North Sea and I was like, yes, my people, and I love tweed. It could be 1,000 degrees outside. I would still want to put on some Harris tweed. So many issues. So I think, I've always been fascinated learning about heritage and legacy and those things. Oh, they did that too. I must get that from them. And I think that reckons back to the belonging. I want to understand what makes all of this up. How did it get here? What do I want to end with me? Which goes to another one of your questions. all of those things. But I'll say, I think we all have a similarity in the answer, which is it's what moves us. And when you look to where you find what moves you, whether it's food or music or the shape of a face or a smell or a type of weather, or just when you're really your most present, what's the most evocative thing to you, you can trace it back to ancestry. And it doesn't always mean a good evocative feeling. It's
Right.
nonetheless, and which goes to the work. I mean, because the work for ancestral healing is to sit with that, is to find out, and I did this with my mom, who's 82 and super vibrant. And I asked her, knowing some of the history with her own mother and some addiction issues. And I said, what do you think could have been in place for grandma so that she might have been more available to you and might have been a better mother and might have been a happier person or blah, blah. And my mom thought about it. And she said, I think if she would have had something like Al-Anon, someplace she could have gone and had support and been able to tell her story and not felt so alone. And I said, I've thought the same thing about you. And so I've been donating money to Al-Anon for a really long time. Every month I send a little bit of money as sort of like a thank you for being there. And she got really excited. She's like, oh, I'm going to do that too. That's a really good idea, even though her mother's not alive. And then I said, well, next time, can we talk about your grandmother? Can we talk about Grandma Kay? And she said, well, she wasn't very nice. I said, I know. Are you willing to still talk about it? And she thought about it. She's like, yeah. And, we talked about it the next time. And I honestly believe that every time that happens and you remember somebody and you have a conversation with them, the weight, if there's weight or the feeling of a tether, that any unease about those feelings lifts and goes away. I know personally it has for me. I've done a lot of work about my father's side, and this was the beginning of work on my mom's side. And it makes me really emotional. So it's sort of one of those things, when you talk about the dead, it's like, let them think of us well because we don't think of them at all. And that just doesn't seem very fair. And it doesn't seem like a kindness, because when you think about what they went through, like my great grandparents across the country in a covered wagon, and I want to feel like they would be proud of me, that they worked so hard and sacrificed so hard and stayed and did all the things they did. And I also want a soft landing when I get where they are, because I'm on a bullet train heading towards my ancestors right now. So I want them to recognize me, literally. I would like a soft landing, and I don't want to be a stranger.
That's beautiful. I mean, when you were talking about how the conversation collectively is shifting around death and dying, but we're not talking about it in the way that you would like at this point, can you elaborate on that? What is the reframe you'd like to see around this conversation?
Thank you. It's a good question. I think it's still formulating for me in some ways. So let me see if I can grab onto a piece of it. Last weekend, I was just with Stephen Jenkinson. So every time I'm with him, if things are percolating sort of in a different way, it's to tell the truth about what we're feeling in the moment, and to not skirt around things, make it easier for the other person, because I think it's not doing them a service. I think it's disrespectful when we're talking about adults here. Kids can really handle the truth in a very different way, I think, than adults can. But to be able to say, Heather, are you clear about your condition? Do you understand that you're dying? Do you understand that this is what the white coats, the allopathic doctors have said is your time frame? Are you really clear about that? Do you have any questions about that? What are the ways of expressing emotion that you feel the most comfortable with right now? Is it physical? Is it vocal? Is it through art? Do you need to get violent in a way where you can't harm yourself, but you can get it out of your body if they're able to do that? All of these things, but also the family. I've had families in so much denial. I still have a sister of somebody that died a few months ago now that sent me a note the other day, convinced that it's not what the doctors said, and because she can't let it go. And that's really hard. And there's not a lot that can be done about that except to say, I disagree with you. I was there. This is what I saw happen. I hear that you have really big feelings right now. And, can you get some support for those feelings? Even with hospice, for the spouse, for the family, I think it's 12 to 13 months post-mortem, there's counseling available to the family. And that's something a lot of people don't know. But I think it's just really learning how to use your words and use simple language. Mad, sad, scared, happy. Is it wrong that I am still feeling happy when I'm in front of this loved one who's dying? It's totally normal. It's fantastic. It's part of grief. Grief and love are like twin sisters. Grief and love are like twin sisters that are holding hands on this path. And so the way we go through it and this whole thing of you're supposed to be done, it's been a long time. My mother went through this when my stepfather died. I should feel better. It's been X amount of time. I was like, who said you should? We have the preconceived notion, I think, cumulatively as a culture that we're somehow owed 95 years. And if we don't make it that long, we've been robbed or their life was cut short, right? I don't know when we decided that as a culture. People didn't live past 50 very often, as recently as 75 years ago. We got sulfa drugs, we got antibiotics. And then because we could keep people alive, we did, and we do. Not always necessarily the best choice, in my opinion. So I think back to talking about it is just really talking about it. There are things I talk to clients about all the time. One is medical aid in dying, which is legal and available here in California. You have to fit a certain criteria. I will tell you that over 70% of the people that qualify for medical aid in dying and get the drugs, there are 3 that you combine, don't go through with it, which I understand those goalposts move, right? So I'm sure that they would move for me. I mean, my idea of what would be too much for me, I'm sure would change when I was in that situation, in that wheelchair, in that hospital, in that I've had my own severe health crises. So I understand that fervent need to stay here. And I don't know that I answered your question, but I feel like it's really just getting honest with yourself, getting clear with yourself, and trying to stay out of fear and come at it as open as possible and willing to have hard conversations.
Kelly, you definitely answered that question. That was great. No, thank you. Thank you. My goodness. This is so powerful. So I want to shift the conversation a little bit. Please. Because there are some people out there that don't know that I'm an Ancestral healing guide, and I actually have a monthly membership called the Ancestral Healing Collective, and it is a sacred space for female-bodied cycle breakers and cycle starters to alchemize ancestral wounds into spiritual gifts, embody joy, creative potential, and shifts to higher consciousness with pleasure.
Yes.
I love it. Thank you. And astrology as transformative medicine. So I want to talk a little astrology with you. And you very kindly sent over your sun, moon, and rising sign. Do you mind if I share this with our community? Because
no, go ahead.
Everybody loves this. No, of course. So you're an Aquarius sun, not a surprise, moon in Capricorn and Virgo rising. And you also shared that there's no fire in your chart and that there is a grand water trine in your chart.
There's fire in my progressed chart, but not my natal chart. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, so I want to talk about this a little bit because this is a really cool big 3 that you have here. So this sun in Aquarius makes so much sense. So the sun in your natal chart is where you shine, and it's the special sauce that you mix into everything that you do that makes you stand out from the other 11 astrological signs. And each sign is a spectrum of psycho-spiritual energy with a high expression and a low expression. And so Aquarius is fixed air, and air is our thoughts, our consciousness, our beliefs, our communication. And Aquarius is so avant-garde. They are the rebel. They are the genius. They are out there doing their own thing. And I think that really comes through in the work that you do. You're really shining, doing work that not everybody wants to do. They may not even know about it. They could be really, really afraid of it, right? Like all the death phobia.
So afraid of it.
You are out there just doing what most people wouldn't dare even think about. So you're definitely standing out in that way. It's very Aquarian. And then, I mean, this Virgo rising makes so much sense. So your rising sign is the vehicle for your divine mission, your purpose in life. It's your perception of reality. And when people first meet you, this is what they pick up on, these rising sign qualities. And Virgo is a totally different energy than Aquarius. It's mutable earth, and earth is what we use to build the structures that give us security and stability in our lives. Virgo is super practical, super organized, super precise, can be overly perfectionistic on the in the lower expression, but in general, because I'm a Virgo moon, so I relate to this. So this is the energy of refining and making things better, simplifying things, and it's the energy of the healer. I mean, I associate the archetype of the discerning herbalist with Virgo energy.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, you are doing
that
this.
tracks. Yeah.
Supporting people, supporting families through these profound transitions, right? Through death and dying. And you're doing ancestral healing work, you know? So it makes so much sense. It makes so much sense that you're this Virgo rising. And then this moon in Capricorn is interesting because it is
Hold
also...
on. My mother and sister and I all have moon in Capricorn.
Okay, interesting. Okay. Well, so also an earth sign, but it's different from Virgo because Capricorn is cardinal earth. And even though it's associated with the energy of the worker bee and the achiever, it's a feminine sign. And so Capricorn is a mountain goat from the waist up and then a fish from the waist down. So all of that is to say is that Capricorn energy is just very practical and grounded and is able to really execute and complete tasks like nobody else. But they also have an emotional side that they have to tend to because you can really be overcome by burnout if you don't tend to that emotional side. And so your moon is your emotions, your emotional inheritance. It's also ancestral wounds, but also the gifts your ancestors gave you. And what I work with, I mean, when it comes to my clients and the people in the membership, I always say, are you doing your moon, right? Are you taking care of your emotional side? So how do you take care of your emotional life as a Capricorn moon?
Good question. So for me, it's physical movement. I have to move my physical body. And I do therapy. I do somatic therapy. I have great people that I work with, and I use a lot of music. So music, again, moving my body. I mean, I think really authentic movement, singing. I'm extraordinarily lucky. I have really good people that I can tell the absolute truth to, no matter how scary, icky, I don't know. It seems if I'm crying so hard that I can barely breathe or my nose is running, any of that stuff, I can be crispy. I can be however I'm feeling. And I get great feedback and a lot of support and a lot of love. So I think it's finding community. I think it's my chosen family, which is a little different than my bio family. And then I think it's really taking care of the body.
Awesome. Well, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. Earth signs are about the body, the physical realm, the things that are tangible, the things that we can see, smell, hear, touch. Awesome. Thank you. I think that's so helpful to share because there are other people out there with the Capricorn moon and they're like, I don't know what's going on.
I can't
really
think my way through it.
Yeah.
It's not a thinking thing. It's a feeling thing. And doing whatever it takes to sink into my body and stay in my body long enough to feel the feels is everything.
Yeah. I love that you are making the time to feel your feelings, to be in your body, and also connect with people you trust where you can be 100% vulnerable. You can show up exactly as you are, no judgments, no expectations. So that's amazing that you have that in your life.
The only caveat to that I would say is, it's not easy breezy.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first thing. And the second thing is, it takes a lot of discernment, which I refine all the time. There are some people that seem like a good person to do that with, and they'll show up and say they are, and they're not. So it's really paying attention, listening to your intuition, finding people. And, I think there's a misconception that it has to be our best friend. It doesn't always.
Mm-hmm.
Because we are kin, we don't have to like each other in every way, but that doesn't mean we can't show up for each other in the ways that really matter if we're on this path together doing the work.
Oh my goodness, Kelly, so much wisdom. Well, so, okay, I want to circle back to ancestral healing because I'm really curious. What do you feel comfortable sharing about the patterns, the cycles that you're actually breaking in this incarnation?
So thank you. The patterns of addiction. So like I said, I've been sober a long time. I attend AA and Al-Anon and double winter meetings. I think, there's a lot of great stuff there. I know 12-step programs aren't for everybody. I know a lot of people that are sober that don't do it that way. And I think, find your way. But I think anything that alters me emotionally is not good for me. Devil's in the details for me. So I need to be awake and aware so that I can make good choices. I think my husband and I married a little bit late and didn't have children. We tried biologically to have children and then went down some other roads. But ultimately, the decision was for us, it's better to not. And one of the reasons is that there's addiction in both of our families. There's some bipolar in both of our families. And it's sort of like, I don't need that to go on. We don't need that to go on. We can put love and care and parenting into our community, into our nieces and nephews, into ourselves, into our relationship. So those are a couple of the ways. And then I think also patterns of unconscious, unintended segregation in my family of having friends that are all one color in a community that's mostly all one color with religions that are certain ways, just getting to the point where that was untenable for me. I just couldn't do it anymore. And so we moved and we live in a neighborhood that's a colorful, fantastic neighborhood. And it's Earth. I live in a real representation of Anglo-North America in my neighborhood. And so I feel like I have a sense of what's actually going on and I can pay attention and try to learn and be of service in a different way.
That is so awesome, Kelly. Thank you for sharing all of that. Well, this is the Cycle Starters podcast, as I said, and I end each interview with the question, what new cycles are you starting in your lineages? And I know you've been talking about this like throughout, but if you had to put a fine point on it, what would you say the cycles are that you're starting?
It's hard to say exactly, but I have something that's 2 paragraphs that I'd like to read that I think kind of sums up the feeling. Because for me, it starts with the feeling. This is Stephen Jenkinson, a little handout called How It Could Be. And on the very back, this is what it says. And I might cry because I've read this 100 times and I cry every time anyway. And it goes like this. If you wrestle an angel, you will grow muscle. There's no doubt about that. You will also hurt in places you didn't know you had. No doubt about that either. And you will lose by the normal calculus of trying to engineer the life you're sure you deserve. It will not come out as you planned, wrestling angels. Your plans are usually the first casualty of the match. But here is the great secret of it. You will be able to boast of your defeat. You will be able to stand in the wreckage of what used to be your certainty, your creed, your way of doing life's business, and you can tell wild, true stories of how it all came to ruin. Whatever is left standing and there is always something left standing when you wrestle angels, is the thing that was true about you and your life all along, as faithful a companion as the earth that will one day cradle you again.
Beautiful. Thank you.
So I think it's looking at what really is. It's like, let's just be in what's really happening.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. This has been such a lovely, enlightening conversation, Kelly. I'm so glad that I met you. It's really been an honor to be in dialogue about this really important topic right now. Thank you for saying yes to walking this path and doing this sacred work. And where can people find you if they want to learn more or they want to connect with you?
So my website is colorpool.org, like the word color, like a coloring book, and pool together.org. So there's all kinds of information about what death doulas are, what we do, what's available. There are free resources. There's an about page. There's an email that comes directly to me. I answer every email within 24 hours. I'm always available for a call or a check-in. And if you want more information, I can let you know when we're hosting a death cafe, which some friends and I do occasionally. We bring together people like yourself, hospice workers, different people to educate a room about what's going on, and people can ask questions, and we have a cup of tea and it's not gloomy. And so that's it, colorpool.org.
Fantastic. All right. Well, this has been amazing. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I hope that I can have you on again at some point, just because I feel like there's so many places that we could go with this topic, and we need to be talking about this more.
Thank you.
Everyone, yes, thank you. And we will see you next time on the Cycle Starters podcast. Take care, everybody. Bye.
Bye.